Well, howdy, partner. Cowpoke, Mark with Kardavox Academy here. And today I'm tremendously excited. I'm crazy excited because it's been almost 10 years, unless I've missed something, since we've heard new job for a cowboy. And that is an extremely long amount of time for us to not hear anything new from the sweet voice of Johnny Davey. I know he did a side thing. I think it was just one track. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm really excited because Johnny Davey has one of my favorite voices in metal. He is one of my 3-part trifecta for favorite metal vocalists of all time, and that is Johnny Davey, Alex Tayan, and Travis Ryan. For me, those three are they the best of the best? Well, I think that's a little subjective, but are they my favorites? Yes, absolutely. So let's go ahead and do it. But first, because it's what we got to do, if you're new here, my name is Mark. I am a metal vocalist myself. I'm in a band called Kardashev. We're on Metal Blade Records. We released an album called Liminal Right about a year ago, maybe a little bit more. Check it out if and you wanna. We'll have little things scrolling at the bottom to keep you informed. I'm also a metal vocal coach. I teach people. My full-time job is teaching people how to make crazy sounds, safely and efficiently for years to come. And I talk about metal vocals here on the channel. We take the reaction format, we break it down, we pause, we talk about vocals. If you don't like pausing, then I'll go ahead and I'll throw more info in as we go, because I kind of just want to get to the point here. And I want to check out Job for Cowboy, The Agony of Seeping Storm, not The Agony of the Seeping Storm, which is weird. The Agony of Seeping Storm. There's probably backstory to that. Here we go. I'm pausing it already and y'all can deal with it. So I want to talk about why. Well, it's in 40 seconds. I always do it in 40 seconds. I want to talk about why Johnny Davey is one of my favorite metal vocalists of all time. And I want to point out a lot of the cool stuff that he's doing. So Johnny Davey is a masterclass in delivery and emotion. And here's exactly what I mean, right? Right now, a lot of what we've heard is the usage of a lot of fundamental, really good false chord stuff. We've got a slightly compressed, we've got a very mildly compressed like mid scream that he's tilting down with his tongue. We'll talk about that in a second. But if I could describe Johnny's voice with one word, it would be venomous. His voice is venomous. He spits his lyrics like a frickin' cobra, and I absolutely love it. And so there are a couple things that are and the reason I kind of decided to pause it really early is because he's doing in the intro here some of my favorite sounds that he does, and I want to key you in on them so that if you're new to Job for a Cowboy, or maybe, you've listened to this band, which is from Arizona, by the way. No wonder they're so good. Well, I don't know how many members remain that are from Arizona, but they started in Arizona. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I want you to key into these things so we can think about them in the future. So I'm going to break down two things here. The first is his high vocal that he's doing. His high vocal is a pretty solid, pretty standard, like false chord high sound. Right? It's a false chord high sound, which I have a lot of thoughts on the terminology we use, but I'll save those for another video. But he's got like that high pitched voice in it, right? He's got that like, he's got that in the back, right? Now, this can be kind of a difficult place to start. And generally, when I'm teaching my students how to do false chord tones, false chord sounds, we generally start voiceless because, if we're just going to have a brand new student who's never interacted with their voice in their life, and we're going to say, oh yeah, let's just like create an extremely bright, overly nasal for the sake of metal vocals, heady mix voice, and then put distortion on it. Like you're asking a lot of that student in one go, because what's one of the hardest things to do with our voices, and one of the things that keeps vocal coaches in business, people want to sing high notes, and that takes a lot of work for a lot of people, right? So I wouldn't start here. If I was going to start doing some false chord high vocals, the first thing I would do is I would get a false chord mid. This is something that you hear from a lot of the other coaches out there. I don't want to put words in their mouths because maybe this isn't their approach now. But starting with a nice relaxed mid is a great foundation. And for a lot of people, what that looks like is just simply this. Starting there. It's nothing crazy fancy, but we can do some cool stuff with it. If I take that and I switch to more forward vowels, wah, meh, and add a little twang to my voice, right? Wah, meh. The shape of my vocal tract that helps facilitate that twang will also help facilitate that mid becoming a high vocal. So if I'm here, that's a difficult jump for a lot of people to make because really you change your vocal tract, the shape of your vocal tract, and you kind of let your distortion do its thing on its own. Once you've got that, then you can kind of put like a pouty sort of like, meh, this sort of sound, meh, rubba blow, and that sounds super silly, right? Rubba blow. But if I mix it with, meh, rubba blow, like you get some kind of cool goblin-y, just sparkly, sinister sounds, which I really, really enjoy. Now, as far as like the sort of, strong driving like mid to mid low tone that he's using, one way that we can approach that is, again, we have our basic false chord mid, which like I'm sort of hearing come back in music for a little while. For a long time, I would have students and they'd come to me for false chord because that's kind of the reputation I've garnered. And this is something I've been told by people. I'm not claiming this for myself, but I've kind of garnered a reputation of being the false chord guy. Which there are other great people who teach false chord as well. It's not just me. But it's most of what I use. So maybe that's the reason why. But I've heard it start coming back. A lot of times people would come to me wanting to learn false chord and they wanted to learn this just to move past it. And I was always like, but there's so much cool stuff you can do. So if we take this and I switch my voice, switch the distortion with my voice, you're going to hear that I'm not doing any really crazy vocal tract shifting, right? I'm not doing any weird stuff. However, if I think about making my voice small, right? So what if my voice, instead of this, hey, was hey, hey everybody, what's going on? My name is Mark. Haha. It kind of sounds like a gangster a little bit, just less nasal, like a 1930s gangster. See, I've got a Tommy gun. That can help facilitate the growl going from to right? And it creates a really big change tonally, but it's actually a very, very small change muscularly. And that's one of the biggest things that I think makes leaps and bounds for a lot of new students and even vocalists who have been doing things for a long time. They're just running into a lot of walls, is that small muscular changes tend to yield big results, right? If I go from here, lot of change. And then he does like Johnny does a lot of like light tunneling, right? So there's just a little bit of and it gives you those cool sounds. Anyways, things I just want you to kind of key in on, but let's keep going. You can hear a little bit of that light tunneling there. It's very, very cool. What? I always do that. I always pause it. Oh, that's a timer going off. Sorry, everybody. Time to switch the laundry. We'll do it after this. I always do that. I always pause to the worst possible times. Anyway, one thing I just wanted to point out, I was going to say, keep it pretty brief. So I don't do like mixing and mastering. I'm not like outside of like vocals are my expertise, but I always like to kind of, give props to the band when I hear it. I think this mix is awesome. Whenever I say that, a lot of people say, no, it sounds terrible. And so maybe I'm wrong, but I love that the way this song is produced. I love the panning and the crispiness of the cymbals that we're hearing. Like, I feel like I'm almost sitting like at the kit, right? Like the cymbals are going each way. I hear what the bass is doing, which, by the way, For A Cowboy's bassist, shout out to you. Oh man. In the last album, which I believe was called Sun Eater, I should know that, but it's been a long time since I listened to it. I just remember being like, dang, they're stepping it up a notch. And I'm really encouraged and excited that we have some of the shreddiness of like older albums with the complex bass like interplay and some of the groove that we had in their most recent album as well. Very cool. Let's hear these vocals that I paused right before like a dummy. So I want to talk more about vocals, which is, what we do here. One thing that I've been talking with a lot of my students recently about, because I have a lot of students who kind of started at the same time and they're slowly moving from the beginner space to the intermediate space. One thing that I've been talking with a lot of my students about is delivery. And oh my God, is Johnny Davey's delivery really, really good. So, when we talk vocal delivery, it's kind of a loose term that many people might use in different ways. For me, when I talk about vocal delivery, but what I'm talking about is technique. It's the intersection, the interplay between technique and emotion and an emotional performance, right? So we have technique and emotional performance. And Johnny Davey's delivery here, it really builds into like this, like again, venomous, like almost, like it almost sounds like I don't want to misuse this word, but like coming from like a place of like psychosis or something. You know how in metal there's like this really frantic, really like what's the word I'm looking for? Frenetic, maybe. There's a lot of aggressive, just like kind of like neurotic sounds to his vocals. So like, for example, I don't know these lyrics. I'm just hearing this for the first time, so I'm just going to kind of mimic what the echo of the patterns sound like in my head. He might have something like, the pattern might be like, there's a burr, right? I don't know. There's a burr, right? That delivery I did, or I'm sorry, that I just did, it's technically very correct, but it was also kind of bland, right? And so he puts like the anger, like instead of just, right, it's and he's got a lot of that like that. He'll punch his consonants out and then sort of scoop them back up. I'll see if I can find a place, but he does a lot of like this bending of his consonants. Like I'll try to think of an example here. Like let's say I went like I punched a vowel out, dove, right, dove, no, there we go, no, and then he might like bend it and pull it back up like a no. Right, it's almost like he's like his vocals are a yo-yo and he's like tossing it out and bringing it back, or maybe like a chain. What was the guy in Mortal Kombat who used the chain? Get over here. Maybe something like that. And then his high voicey mixy vocals, like you don't get bored, right? You know what I'm saying? You don't get bored listening to Johnny Davey, and I think that's like is a testament to how good he is, because I have heard a lot of metal vocals in my time, and it's very, very difficult for me to get surprised. And I get bored a lot, and I think that it's not because of the music, it's because of me. You know what I mean? But yeah, a lot of this is, strong control of fundamentals with excellent emotion and performance and delivery, right? Like I can use this technique and I could say, let's say the Agony of Seeping Storm. That's a line, right? I could say like, nah, nah, nah. I could say the Agony of Seeping Storm, right? And that I mean, it checks all the boxes as far as technique, but it sounds like I don't want to be at the mic. You know what I mean? The Agony of Seeping Storm. It sounds like I don't want to be there. Now what I'm going to do is like, I'm just going to throw that emotion, that venom. And obviously emotion is still technique, right? So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be snarling my lips around my teeth. I'm going to be sort of chewing on the syllables as they come out, right? I'm going to let my voice have a little bit of like a playful prosody to it. I'm going to let it kind of canter up and down. I'm not going to really overly like control what's going on. Once you have a certain level of comfort with your voice, you can kind of let your voice go a little bit and let it do its own thing. So we were here, right? The Agony of Seeping Storm. Now I might do something like, the Agony of Seeping Storm. The Agony of Seeping Storm. Right, and that's where things get a little bit more interesting. Now, if you're looking for a good handle on getting to the point where you can play with your voice like that, you really do need to learn the fundamentals first. And we did release a virtual course that's been helping a lot of people. It's been doing really well, a little bit better than expected. It's called False Chord Fundamentals. You can find it on our website, KardavoxAcademy.com. People have been working through it and enjoying it. We've been getting some good feedback. And also I do give one-on-one lessons. That's really, I don't have a lot of space right now, but still toss us an email if you want to talk about either getting on that virtual course where you can learn at your own pace, or if you want to work with me one-on-one to get going, those types of sound going. Anyway, let's listen more to this song because it's dope as hell. That pause is a good spot to talk. Dang, like a little tesseract going on. Job for a tesseract for a cowboy. Sheesh. So one thing I want to this isn't related to what he's doing directly, but it is very, very important. One thing that you can do, let's say you're a metal vocalist and you've got a handle of the fundamentals, right? But one thing you find is that you're really gassing out. Either, you're running out of air really fast, or, maybe you are tiring out. You're like, hey, I know that I'm doing everything right, but you might not be doing everything right. But like, I don't get pain. I get tired really fast. One of the biggest things that we do in metal, and one of the easiest things to do in metal, is to over project, right? And that comes from a lot of things. One, metal vocals are a very intense sound, so we think that we need an intense level of effort behind them. Not necessarily so. And two, they're exciting. They're very emotionally cathartic. It's a cathartic experience to do metal vocals, right? Because we're tapping into something very old and very ancient. You know what I mean? Like back in the day when we were running around before we had technology, and we saw, something crazy in the now I'm just kind of spitballing here, right? This is just kind of how I feel about metal vocals. But if we wanted to scare something off, we put a spear over our head and we were just like, right, and as silly as it sounds, like, I think that that's kind of stayed with us for a little while, and so it feels good to scream. One of the most common things, well, maybe not the most common, but one thing I really enjoy is when I get someone in my lessons who's kind of like shy, kind of like soft spoken. They're not very loud. Maybe they grew up and they were like not allowed to be loud in the house, and then I get them comfortable just shouting, and they like love just shouting. Problem is, we can't just shout our vocals. We have to project with balance. So what does this mean, right? It means utilizing natural resonant properties to help us get the volume that we need without having to put extra effort here or really any effort here. So what do we do? Well, one of the things you can do, and this has been around for a long time, I didn't invent this, right, is getting comfortable with your screams as if they're speaking voices. Now, they may not work exactly the same way as your speaking voice. Like we know that false chord is inherently compared to other vocal styles and compared to your speaking voice, it's not going to be as efficient with airflow, right? You're not going to hold a false chord the same length that you're going to hold a clean tone or a fry scream. It's just probably not going to happen, but you can still do that. Like, so for example, one thing you can do is, and focus on balance. Don't focus on sounding cool, focus on balance and tone, right? So I can just kind of slip into a basic false chord, vocal while I'm talking to you. So what's a good subject? Okay, so the other day I was playing Baldur's Gate 3 and I really fucking love that game. My favorite thing to do is to use telekinesis to throw enemies off of ledges. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. Now with that, you can hear I can move into my speaking voice, and even though my false chord was much louder and much more intense, it wasn't much more like physical effort than my speaking voice. You can go, hey there, what's going on? 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 Right? You can do this with other vocal styles too. Like you can get comfortable with your high speaking voice. Like let's say you were playing Dungeons and Dragons and you were playing a little goblin, and that goblin was looking for treasure, and he found a gem, and that gem was very shiny. Right? That is it more effort than my speaking voice? Of course. It would be disingenuous for me to say otherwise, and you would all be watching this video and be like, Mark, you are a liar. But was it a lot more? No, not much more effort. And this is a really great place to take your vocals either as you're learning them. This is part of the way that I teach my students, so they have this built in from the foundation moving forward, or something to come back to if you're the only way you know how to scream is to be as loud and projected as you possibly can. There's a lot more that I could say about this, but for the sake of time, I will not. However, this is part of the reason that Johnny here is able to be, good vocalists are named Johnny. We've got Johnny Davey, we've got Johnny Chardulo, and Johnny Bravo. No, I'm just kidding. Those are actually the only two Johnny vocalists I could think of. So maybe I jumped the gun, but they're both great. Doesn't matter. So, that's part of the way he's able to, utilize this really, really strong, sort of insane narrative voice on his high vocals, because, he's just sort of talking on time. He's utilizing the high screams to be on time with the song and deliver the vocals. And moving through there is a lot easier when you're able to control why did my brain just stop? When you're able to control the effort of your vocals. Let's go. Aw, I remember when my son was that little, about a year ago. I don't trust that baby though. Seems like a demon baby to me. Anyway, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. I really like this. And if this is an example of where I was thinking about it when I heard rumors that the boys in Job for a Cowboy were working on new stuff. I was like, man, I really hope they build on their previous album, because it's my favorite of their albums. And I would love to see that become like the baseline of their sound moving forward. Kind of like, similarly, you can see it in the thumbnail here, kind of like how Cattle Decapitation released Monolith of Inhumanity, and I was like, man, this is the best. I hope the rest of their albums sound like this, and they do. So yeah, I hope this is like the building of a new era for Job for a Cowboy. So let's say you heard this song and you love it, and you really want to start building your vocals in this way. I'm going to be the boring old man and I'm going to say, take it slow and work with the fundamentals. There is so much to be said for experimenting with your voice and playing with your voice and seeing what it can do. But these sounds and the way that they're delivered and the way that we're moving up and down and back and forth, from where we're placing them and even putting vocals like true tone, like true chord phonation into our screams. This is not a place where I would say most people should start, right? So if you're going to start, again, just like this, hey, this vocal right here can take you in a lot of different directions. For example, if you take that same false chord, which a lot of people call the old school false chord, right? Which it's slowly coming back. This hey, ha, oh, hey. All I'm going to do is I'm going to curl my tongue downward a little bit. Hey, ho, hey. And I'm going to pucker my lips. Hey, you can do cool stuff, and really all I did was manipulate my mouth, right? That's one of the things that I kind of like to relay to my students is that, our vocals, we can really benefit from thinking about creating steady distortion here and then utilizing our mouth as a filter. Like if I do like a cool guttural, more like my style than like this style, the way that I do it in Kardashev, something like, there we go. Right? If I take away the bells and whistles, which is the curled tongue, the drop jaw, the puckered lips, and my jaw's slightly pushed forward, gently, I don't want to put too much stress on the joint, right? If I take that away, what you're going to hear is a kind of boring mid. And that's my baseline tone for a lot of what I do. And my chest voicey screams, just this. And that alone is not that impressive, but it's what you do with it. It's the way that you deliver it, right? It's the storytelling, it's the message. So that being said, I think that's long enough. Again, if you want to get comfortable with the foundational false chord sound, go to KardavoxAcademy.com. Check out our e-course. It's helping out a lot of people. People are enjoying it, and I'm really excited to see how it's doing. You can also reach out to us for one-on-one lessons. We do have a bit of a wait list right now. Things are very, very full, but still. Spots open up sometimes. People go to college or they switch jobs or they meet their goals. They say, hey, I kind of got what I wanted out of this. I'm going to make room for somebody else. It does happen. So let us know. And beyond that, that's all I have for you. Thanks for watching. It's going to prove to be a very busy September. Many thanks. Much love. I'm out.